trying to understand this video game landscape, understand what are the personalities, what do they really want, is there something they didn't mention yet that's an objective of theirs. So try to start a little bit slow, even though everybody's adrenaline gets pumping and they want to get moving. It's worthwhile to accelerate a little bit later.
So let's say there's a number that you know you want, right?
Uh-huh.
Is there a number that you, like percentage-wise, that you started higher than that, like 15, 20% higher, 50% higher, or there's it's not something arbitrary?
I don't think there's a rule, because again, everything is so context dependent. So for instance, one of the silliest things I hear is, which sometimes works, is I offered this, let's meet halfway, right? But what if you start with some ridiculous number, right? Then we meet halfway? No. You don't want to be offensive with your first offer. You don't want to give something that will make the other side walk out of the room or think you're silly or that you're not serious. So you want to be within the range of reason and not offensive, but still be aggressive and still leave room to compromise. But there's unfortunately no fixed percentage to say that's what you do each time.
Have you ever felt like you're in a situation where you're negotiating something and if they say no to your first offer, you feel like they'll never say yes, so you give one of the best offers you're willing to give off the bat?
So I've been in situations where people gave great offers off the bat because, going back to Avi's point about how many bidders, how many alternatives, there were a lot of alternatives. For instance, in the real estate context, if we're bidding on a project, let's say a public project, and there's a great site in the middle of Manhattan that is going to go to a developer, and everybody's interested, everybody's giving a proposal, right? You might want to give your best offer, because you're in a bidding situation and you want to win. So you might say, this is what we could do, this is the amount of money we could pour into the project, this is the percentage you'll get, these are all the sweeteners we'd add, take us, because we know if we get this piece of land, we could do a tremendous amount and we could make our returns go through the roof. So in certain situations, sure, you don't want to hold that, but again, context.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, sometimes you just can't afford to play the game, and it's often in real estate, right? There's that one house that you want to buy. If it's worth it to you to buy it and you want to make sure you don't lose it, you put in a reasonable bid and you get it. But you have to be careful with that too, because once you've put your best bid, you're just going to go higher than that if you don't take it. Sometimes you get lucky.
So to keep running through these, next one I have is horse trading, which often links completely unlinked points. So let's say there are 4 different items that have absolutely nothing to do with each other than the fact that they're part of the same negotiation. To basically say, hey guys, you're asking for this, you win on this, we'll give that to you, you give us this, and we split basically the open items, and we horse trade, and everybody, in theory, ends up happy. And that could be very complex. It can work, but often the items on the table are not of similar importance, and it's hard to do that, and only in certain situations, where you could truly prioritize, what's important for you, and you could win on that, and the other side has a different priority that you could horse trade, but it's something to have in your toolbox.
How many meetings does a negotiation usually take to get done? Not within one session, right? I'm assuming you come back, back and forth.
So I hate kind of saying the same thing about context, but it's so true for this too, because if you're in that bidding situation, I've been in bidding situations where there's a fire sale, there's a bankruptcy, company's selling all of its assets, and it needs money now. So by the end of the day, 5 o'clock, and the Mercedes example that we'll use is going to be time bound, so there's going to be a sense of urgency. By 5 o'clock, best bidder wins, so go at it. So yeah, sure, sometimes it's the same day. Other times we've been dealing with government-type bidding situations, and the government sometimes could, have its own bureaucracy to work through, and it's taken years, a year's worth of meetings to negotiate. So there's a huge spectrum.
Yeah, that's definitely true. What?
Government.
Yeah, government moves slowly. Sometimes also you have to gauge your business needs to how long you think the negotiation will take. Right? If you're trying to sell a division or you're trying to acquire something, you have to strategize. This is going to be one of those negotiations. It's going to take 6 months. So how do I plan for that? Because it's not going to be one of these quickie negotiations.
I've been dealing with Moa for a year and change now. I mean, we're stuck with this lender we don't want to use. They're changing guarantees all the time. It's a sad.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one I have is using silence but in a different way. I was talking about before listening, saying, aha, yes. But there are some people who, if there's a disagreement, they would just sit there silently. And I've seen this happen, where they wouldn't say a thing, and they'd wait basically for the other side to negotiate against themselves or to fill the silence. And it could be incredibly uncomfortable. Often does not build the relationship, but sometimes could be effective. And, another tool for you guys to think about. Next, I have pressure or being completely inflexible. Again, not recommended, but at times this could work. If you know the other side doesn't have leverage, doesn't have options, if you're quick to say this is my final offer, I'm not moving, take it or leave it, or the types of people who are yellers and screamers and feel like they can exert pressure on the other side. That way, it happens. I think low percentage chance of it working, but it's there. You should be aware of it. We talked about recesses and the idea of if a team is having issues, team dynamic issues. But sometimes even if your team is very fluid and everybody's on the same page, if you think it's a good idea to regroup, re-strategize, it doesn't have to necessarily be after somebody made a mistake. It's often a good idea, I think, in general, in negotiation, in life, not to jump into action, but to take a second, walk out of the room, think about something, come back in. So recess. Or another thing is if both sides are getting angry at each other, or insulting each other, or it's not productive, take a time out, take a recess. Another one is the apologetic approach. I've seen many people use this with great success, basically saying, I'm so sorry, I wish I could meet you there. I want to get this deal done. Unfortunately, I can't because of X, Y, Z, rather than the strong-arming approach. Very, very effective. And again, so counterintuitive. The best negotiators I've ever seen are people who are very soft-spoken and listeners and make the other side feel like they're winning even when they're not. Humor is another option. Very, very, very effective. You want to build rapport. So if you could get to know the other side, and I even think of when Avi did his intro and when he was meeting everybody and getting to know everybody and then made a couple of jokes there. He wasn't negotiating with you, but that's the type of dynamic you want with people on the other side. You want to feel like, or you want them to feel like you're getting to know them. You could joke around with them. You're friends with them. That's so productive, and that will help you work through thorny issues.
It definitely breaks down barriers. Either it makes the other side more comfortable where you're starting to talk to one another, or it helps you sort of neutralize the room a little bit. Now, I've walked in negotiations where they're very, very tense, and I just make a joke about something, and then how can you be serious and tense, after someone's done that, and it sort of recalibrates the room a little bit. But you have to also be careful because sometimes people think you're like a jokester and you're not serious.
Right.
It's happened to me, but it's okay.
Yeah. And I think something hand in hand with that is also people who use compliments. We've had clients who walked into a room and said, what a room of beautiful people, and really sold it. I wouldn't be able to do that and sell it, but this person sold it. And being able to compliment and make people feel good about the process, it makes people want to stay in the room longer, and work with you rather than try to leave and give up.
You guys have, I don't know, after meetings, kind of like an icebreaker, go out for drinks or something like that?
Definitely. We've done that so many times. I was once in a very tense bankruptcy negotiation, which I guess I can now talk about, it's all public, biggest bankruptcy in Montana was this Yellowstone Club, which is an ultra-luxury ski resort where Bill Gates is a member, Justin Timberlake is a member, and the ownership, went into bankruptcy, and it was a big problem. A large portion of Montana was going to lose their jobs, and we were negotiating nonstop, around the clock, because again, bankruptcy time pressure. And yeah, we used that tactic. We went to a local Montana bar. We ordered the Moose Drool beer for the other side, and everybody was having a good time, was laughing, was joking, and it builds rapport. That's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to show how tough you are. Very much the opposite. You're trying to connect. So I think that's a great point, great tactic. Other items, finding common ground. You understand, constant evaluation and reevaluation. Dynamics are changing. Covered. Consider their needs. I think this is really important. We talked about it, but there are some nuances. So one of the phrases I like a lot in negotiation is it ice in the winter? Meaning, are you giving something to them that they already have, and you really shouldn't be making a big deal about it, because either they have it or they're going to get it anyway, just give it to them, Like, this happens in law and in contracts so frequently, where there might be a technically right way of doing something, but it might have zero practical value, and people who are good lawyers with contractual negotiators know what they can give, what they can't, and don't try to win every point when you have 100 points and when you're dealing with non-practical stuff. When something's ice in the winter, give it. Don't be a hero on that. Similarly, think about saving face. I was working with somebody who I knew was very fragile in a way, where she felt that her bosses were looking over her shoulder, and she was very concerned about looking stupid in front of them on the other side. And that was a big part of the dynamic. Now, I would not want to say anything that made her look or feel stupid. I wanted to help her save face, and unfortunately there were some statements that needed correcting that were very wrong. And you have to think about, what's the dynamic. You don't want to make somebody lose face in front of their superiors in a way that they're then going to resent you for the rest of the negotiation and hold it against you.
Can I ask you a
Sure.
question about that? Do you try to somehow let them know that you done that for them?
So sometimes they don't always realize, and sometimes I feel like, I should be getting some brownie points in terms of the negotiation. So there's not always a way to know, but sometimes, yes, I've let them know. For instance, a week ago, I felt great about myself in that I found a great contractual catch where there was a multi-million-dollar error on the other side, and I brought it up to our client, and I said, look, they messed up on this, we caught this, this will make you an extra $5 million if we leave this error in, up to you. They're sophisticated parties, they have sophisticated counsel, this is not something that would hurt your reputation in our opinion, no harm, no foul, should we take this? And they said, given the relationship we think we're going to have to do repeat business with them, let's let them know. So when we let them know, we didn't do it in front of superiors, but we made a bit of a show of it. We said, look at this, you could have lost this amount, look how good guys we are, basically not in such words, we're more eloquent, but we're saying, look, this is what we found, this is what we're doing for you, we're good faith negotiators, basically give us some brownie points, don't be so rough in the next round because look what we're doing for you, basically you owe us almost, was the feel. And whether that carries over, whether that matters, whether they forget it the next day, who knows. But as long as you're giving something, make it feel like a big give and try to make the other side know. And I don't think it only applies to catches or big dollar amounts. In your negotiations today, I assume not everybody's going to be staying fixed at the point they started. People are going to be moving hopefully closer to each other on some points. And when you give, make it feel like a big give, even if it's a small one. And that goes to dollar amounts or, helping people save face or in any other context. Okay, so a few more and then let's jump into the negotiation. So preparation, I think Avi addressed this a little bit in terms of internet searches. So much available these days. So much you could do to learn about a person, their company, what's going on at the time, you know, their sensitivities, their background even, their children. You know, I wouldn't mention that you're stalking somebody, you know, in a negotiation, and I wouldn't say, oh, your children's names are XYZ and they go here, and, you know, obviously use tact, but knowing somebody's background and asking the right questions and bringing them out of their shell could be very useful.
Rough, you say, I know where you live. But they're also, aside from just internet searches, for like $500, you could actually have a company do
Mhm.
a background check on an individual, on a company, or whatever. And, you know, so I've used it sometimes. Sometimes it's useful. They'll come up with information that you can't find, and knowing the person is really a big advantage. Knowing, especially like what other deals have they done? You know, like in your business, like knowing like, do they really want this? Like, have they done 3 other deals in this area, and this is really where they want to focus? That makes them more desperate for the deal.
Yeah. Okay, similarly, understanding what other deals they've done. You know, if let's say you're in real estate or you're in high tech or pharmaceuticals, you know, have they done these deals before? Like, if they're asking for something crazy and aggressive, is it because they just don't know the market, and you'd approach that a very different way? Okay, I'm going to skip over a few. Okay, this is one of my favorite, knowing when to stop. So there was somebody who we worked with at Trump who you don't know, not a TV personality, but somebody still important within the organization, who used to have the expression approved, where he would bang on the desk and say approved. And his point was, sometimes people keep talking even when they got what they want. And that's a huge mistake. If you hit your goal in negotiation, you know, have that approved kind of fist in your head and know when to be quiet. Because sometimes you reopen a negotiation that you don't want to reopen. If you won something, you know, just take your win and walk out the door, basically.
That's actually a big one, especially in negotiating a business deal. If you accidentally go one step further, or you mention something that no one was paying attention to, you've now opened the door to this whole area that now you have to deal with. I've had lawyers I stopped doing business with because they would keep doing that in a negotiation. They sort of like, oh, one more thing, and they'd mention something that nobody was focused on.
Right.
It's like, why did you just say that? You know, you have to be very, very, very careful with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to fold in 2 more things, and then I'll
And then maybe we'll
stop.
take a little break and
Yeah.
do some questions.
Sure. So one is just asking questions to your own side, and this ties in with preparation. And an example on this is to go back to my night last night. We're in the midst of a lease negotiation for a big lease, and our client is going to be the tenant. And they said they have a very unique type of business, and they want to make sure that there's no other business like theirs within the neighborhood. And they said, get that done, basically. Draft something and send it out Saturday night so the other side can think about it. And thankfully they were online, but there's no way to do that unless you ask a lot of good questions, right? What do they mean by competitor? How would they define similar businesses? And their response was, you know, a business with a net worth over X amount. But would that then really work, right? Let's say you have a gargantuan company that's in the red. Do they not want to restrict that company? Are they really meaning net worth? Do they really mean the number of locations if they're trying to deal with size? You know, what would be the best metric? When they say not in the same neighborhood, what does that mean, right? How many blocks? What radius? You know, what are the metrics? So still understanding your side, and then you don't want to be unreasonable to the other side. So how can you restrict the landlord from making the whole neighborhood free of competitors, right? You can't. The landlord doesn't own the whole neighborhood. So you have to restrict it to things the landlord owns or controls in one way or the other. Bottom line, you have to dig deeper into the details and ask questions. And the last point, which is really important, try to love it. Love the process. Enjoy yourself. Because anything I think you do, if you're passionate about it, if you're enjoying yourself, your brain's going to function at a higher level. You're going to be more perceptive. So try to the extent that you can not to tense up and to just soak it in, the ups and the downs. So, unless you want to add something, maybe
No,
we
I
should
think
break?
maybe we should take a break unless you have any questions about this, and then let's try to play this out a little bit and see how it works.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you?
It's good.
What's up, all right?
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
You know, it works in this, the different sizes.
Okay.
I'm not ready yet. I'm finishing up my business.
Yeah.
I will have to write some. I will have to here right now. I need to learn that I have no connection to that. I will first, yeah, right. Yeah, so, first I will listen to this